Hey, welcome back to Pardon the Curiosity. Today, we're diving into one of the hottest debates in America, how we vote. From handwritten ballots in the 1800s to the explosion of mail-in ballots during COVID to Trump's call now to shut it all down. We're going to break it down. We're going to cover the history, the pros and cons, and we'll talk a little bit about Biden's record vote count and the moments of 2020 and our take on where common ground might actually exist. Okay, let's rewind. In the 1800s, voting in America was all in person and often public places. Some states even used voice voting. You literally stood up and announced your choice. Privacy? There wasn't any. But by the late 1800s, the secret ballot, a uniform paper ballot cast privately, became the norm. That changed standardized elections and built trust. Absentee ballots started during the Civil War, letting soldiers vote from the battlefield. Over time, states expanded absentee voting for illness, disability, travel. And by the late 1900s, some states, will say Oregon, Washington, and Colorado, even moved to all-mail elections. So no, mail-in ballots didn't begin in 2020, but in 2020, the floodgates opened. So before COVID, about 1 in 5 Americans voted by mail. In 2020, that number nearly doubled to almost half. Why? Well, pandemic fears closed polling sites and states mailing ballots to every registered voter. Some states rolled those rules back after 2020, while others made them permanent. And that's where the political wars really began. So the pros of mail-in voting, well, it makes voting easier for seniors, people with disabilities, rural voters, and our military. It boosts turnout. States that use mail-in voting regularly see higher participation. Paper trail means votes can be audited, provides resiliency during crises like pandemics or natural disasters. And the cons. Many Americans are now distrusting the system, citing ballot harvesting and chain of custody concerns. The infamous 3 a.m. vote dumps in 2020 fueled the perception of shady activity. Ballots take longer to count, dragging results from days into weeks, and higher rejection rates for technical errors like signatures or missing envelopes. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. Biden pulled in 81 million votes in 2020, more than any candidate in U.S. history. That's higher than Obama in '08, and when Obama rallies were filling entire stadiums. And Trump himself also broke records, pulling in over 74 million votes. So both men shattered the old records. But here's what raised eyebrows. If you add Biden's 81 million to Trump's 74 million, that's 155 million ballots. And for a lot of people, that looks like more votes than we maybe even have voters. But in reality, about 159 million Americans voted in 2020, roughly a 67% turnout. It still is the highest in over a century. And officials say that was driven by expanded mail-in voting and extreme polarization. Critics say it just doesn't pass the smell test. How does a man with fewer rallies, less energy, and lower visible enthusiasm outperform Obama by 12 million votes? That's exactly why so many Americans believe something went wrong, whether it's provable fraud or just rules being bent to one side's advantage. So now we have a new proposal. Here's the plan. Trump frames it: eliminate most mail-in ballots, end voting machines, and return to in-person, ID-verified, hand-marked paper ballots. Exceptions, of course, would still exist. The military overseas, seniors voting for polling stations in their facilities. Supporters argue this would restore confidence and prevent the perception of fraud. And opponents, well, they call it voter suppression, claiming it would make voting harder for millions of Americans, especially in rural areas or among those without easy transportation. All right, well, here's our take. Mail in ballots didn't start in 2020, but their sudden expansion cracked public trust. Trump's proposal would absolutely rebuild confidence for one side, but critics say it limits access. Here's how we see it. America voted this way for decades. People managed to make it to polling stations, rain or shine. And if you chose to live in a rural area, that's a lifestyle decision that comes with sacrifices, like driving into town for essentials. And yes, for voting. We don't buy the idea that requiring in person voting with ID is suppression. It's the standard we lived under for generations, and it worked. That said, maybe the real solution isn't all or nothing. Maybe it looks like keep mail in ballots but require ID to request one. Limit ballot collection strictly to family or caregivers. Set up senior and hospital polling sites so people aren't left out. And mandate audits, live stream the counting, and process ballots in early so there are no more late night vote dumps. That way, you preserve access while rebuilding trust. Because at the end of the day, confidence in elections matter just as much as the ballots themselves. And 2020 left us all with a lot of things that make you go, moments that people still talk about today. I.e., Atlanta, workers announced counting was done for the night. And then surveillance footage later shows ballots being pulled out and counted after hours. Arizona, delays in Maricopa County and tabulators rejecting ballots fueled frustration. Michigan, windows were covered at Detroit's TCF Center as counting went on, leaving observers suspicious. Pennsylvania, last-minute rule changes on mail ballots and signature verification left millions questioning the process. And let's not forget the documentary 2000 Mules. It claimed that ballot harvesting rings were stuffing drop boxes in key states. Supporters saw it as proof of what they suspected. Critics said it was circumstantial, but the impact was huge. It hardened the divide and reinforced the perception that something was off. Now, election officials and courts may have explanations for all these, but for tens of millions of Americans, those explanations never erased the doubt. When you see the vote count spike overnight, when rules change midstream, and when observers feel pushed aside, trust collapses. That's why this debate matters. Whether you agree with Trump's push for in-person ID-only voting, or you believe mail-in ballots can be reformed with safeguards, one thing is clear. The system has to be trusted by everyone, or it won't work for anyone. So what do you think? Should America end mail-in voting altogether, or keep it but with tighter rules and transparency? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and follow us on YouTube and Facebook at Pardon the Curiosity.